The Museum of Early American Tools by Eric Sloane. And I just paused the CD behind me. Sorry about that. Getting things organized. There's Eric Sloane with some of the tools. And he's got sketches of different tools. And we've been talking about axes, broad axes in particular. And now we're going to talk about the hatchet. And this is the page on the hatchet. I'm going to read a little bit of the text to you. Today's household hatchet began as the shingling hatchet. This had a flared shape with a slightly rounded nail hammering head and a nail pulling notch in the bit. Because the first New World roofs were thatched, shingling hatchets were unknown to the early settlers. Shingling hatchets so often fell from roofs being worked on that roofers frequently had them strung for hanging at the wrist. The lathing hatchet is recognized by its flat outside contour, made so nails could be struck near a ceiling without hitting it. If the axe head flared, the flare was on the inside of the bit. It soon became the favorite carpenter's tool to replace the awkward cooper's hatchet. See the opposite page. And the cooper's rounding off a barrel head is using a cooper's hatchet. Notice how it was held close to its head rather than by the end of its handle. And there's you've got the illustrations showing the cooper rounding and edging that top of a barrel or a cask of some form. You can see the other hatchet designs here. Move my fingers out of the way. And on we go. There's a couple of others down at the bottom. I'll read a bit about their captions. The last sentence, the 1790 American axe hatchet shown below, there they are, was a miniature model of the square-headed American axe and the pole that overweighed the bit. So they have a 1790 hatchet, an axe set, the first American design, and then they had the earliest factory-made hatchets, about 1845, illustrated below, right there. You can see it a little closer. And on the other page, they have the shingling hatchet and a long nail hammering pole and a flared bit, and that's at the top. There you go. The original handle often had a hole or eye for a string, so you didn't drop it. And then there's sealing surface. They're showing how that lathing hatchet would be used near the ceiling, the flat end of it being used to drive a nail into the lathe. And you can see different designs there. And then again, the cooper's hatchet at the bottom, held up close to the head as opposed to down at the end of the handle. 1780 cooper's hatchet in that case. All right, let's look at hammers. And we've got good illustrations of different types of hammers. Some of these will be familiar. And the claw hammer here at the bottom. That is a Roman claw hammer with contour following the motions of the tool use. And then it's a gem of good designing, delicately rounded face on that. So you can see that a little bit there. Okay, this is what he has to say about hammers. The claw hammer hasn't changed much since about 75 AD. Aside from its aesthetic qualities, the Roman example shown below has a most efficient design, which might do well to show up any day now. The use of nails in the 1600s and the 1700s was more efficient then than now. The early square-cut nails, for instance, had greater holding power than our round nails. Furthermore, they retarded splitting of the wood. The practice of clenching, bending over the protruding point, is now regarded as poor workmanship, but its efficiency is obvious. Early batten doors with wrought nails on the outside and bent points on the inside are cemented together so well that it is next to impossible to pry them apart. Perhaps the rarity of ancient iron hammers in America is due to the once widespread practice of using wooden mallets to drive in wooden nails, tree nails, or trunnels, even wooden nails of a tiny toothpick size. Wooden mallets were also used as striking chisels, iron hammers only for metal nails. And they have quite a number here to show Pennsylvania hammers, not unlike the ancient Roman from the early 1800s, a cooper's hammer, a claw for wooden pegs, and a cobbler's hammer used as much for cabinets as was for cobblers and the corners of drawers. Early nail hammer, veneer hammer, cooper's lungstart, it looks like. Lungstart, I think is actually the right word. And then there's carpenter's mallets, beech burl wheelwright's mallet, walnut burl mallet. The latter from, it looks like 1760, I believe. And so pretty good illustrations there of the different types of hammers and mallets in use. Okay, so we move on to the next page, and I think we'll wrap it up on that one. We don't want to make these too long. It's good to have a few of you with us. The name Molly Hatchet was not taken from an act or a gimmick. It came from the old piece of Southern folklore the band heard while growing up in Jacksonville, Florida. The story involved a rumored woman from the 1800s whose nickname carried a dark, cautionary tone. Whether the tale was true never really mattered. What mattered was the sound of the name and the sense of danger and myth it suggested. The band chose it because it felt southern, gritty, and memorable. It was never meant to describe an action or a weapon, only to evoke a mood and a bit of legend that matched the music. There we go, from John Marshall. That adds to our combination here. Origins joined, John Marshall is joined, Alexei Zaitsev is joined, and Harriet C., and Sylvia Cullett. We form a little community, after all. I don't know you all personally for the most part, but I'm getting to know Origin definitely. We'll be talking tomorrow on Friday about fair AI economy and ethics in AI and other things. I don't know where it's likely to go because I'm all confused and interested in how things are evolving and what people are thinking about. I've been digging into OpenCog a little bit more. But we are right now talking about early American tools, and one of our tools these days are these artificial intelligence instantiations. I don't really think of them as intelligent so much as research assistants, as tools themselves. And so it goes. Now, unfortunately, this book is completely falling apart now. It hadn't been used for years, I don't think, and it's kind of rare. So I'm really kind of sad that it's crumpling in my hands. But this is the nature of bindings from 1973. All right. So I'm on the right spot. Let's make sure. Yeah. The Axe and the Log House. Before we leave the subject of axes, the reader will be interested in seeing just what was executed or what was expected of the axe. Here are some standard log houses, notches often made with only the axe. I'm just going to take the pages that are holding together here. And we're going to look at first a maul at the top and a mortise axe and saw showing chamber and notch and square ends from 1760. Then below that, the square notch of the late 1700s, often chinked with narrow clapboards. There you have those illustrations, and I've read the text around them. You can see those details as Eric Sloane has sketched them for us. The saddle notch, showing number one, an axe cut, and then a gutter adds to round it out, and then a sharp notch, which could be done with an axe alone, 2 slashes and a notch below, it shows. And then finally the dovetail notch, in which a lip adds with an axe were used to create upper notch slants out to drain the rain. And this came from Sweden about 1640. So those are the 3 different types of notches we're showing there. You can see how the adze would be applied. and it just likes to move around on me a little bit, trying to keep me in the camera, apparently. And that's what it is. Then we have the ads. The idea of a sharp tool with its blade at a right angle to the handle is most ancient. The early American version was swung in the curvature of the blade, with the arm and tool forming the radius. Because of its flaring square end, the adze head had to be removable, as the needed to be sharpened and was on the inside and inaccessible to a grindstone. Some of the earliest adzes, however, had non-removable heads which had to be sharpened with a whetstone. The shipwright's adze had a long peg pole for driving down broken nails and to prevent the blade from being nicked. As shown below, the right angle cuts on old beams are make-ready scorings for the broadaxe work, not so-called adze marks. Only in special parlor beams, these were made to be exposed. Was the adze introduced when the surface effect was from a delicate ripple to almost complete smoothness. So there you have a look at the adze being used on a beam. And there they have said the adze made surfaces smooth, broadaxe beams with make-ready axe scorings left showing. It didn't leave score marks, the adze didn't. So you see how that was used to smooth off those axe-hewn beams. Okay. Next page, lots of illustrations, lots of text around them. I'm going to read the text, and then I'm going to show you again the illustrations. Okay. The adze helve, the handle, has a flaring end, usually rectangular. The curve comes in during the 1800s. Flat pounding poles, an octagonal pole is shown from the 1800s, it looks like. Notice the bevels are on the inside, and these are carpenter's adzes, the flat pounding pole. And there's one from the 1600s and one from the 1700s, and they show them there at the top from right here. Now, moving down, you have the shipwright's adze, or American adze, and that had a spur or a nail punch at the end. So you see there, you can make a little indentation for the nail to be driven in, make it a little better. The gutter adze or spout adze came lipped and round. No pole on those. This is the gutter adze down here at the bottom. At the very bottom, we have the Cooper's adze. The smaller version of this is the one-hand Cooper adze, shown on the next pages. Oh, the next pages. So, yeah. And that actually is a section, next pages, sure might, about canoes and bowls, because you need to be able to make canoes, you need to be able to make bowls, and you see how those came out of grows on the trees, boil and knurl of the burl made the best bowl. Okay. So the word canoe, canal, or canoe in the 1600s, spelled C-A-N-O-W or C-A-N-O-O, described a hollowed-out log. Until the Indians saw the English hand adze, they used fire to burn out the hollow portion and flint knives and shells to scrape out the burned wood. Then they devised their own adze, using flint instead of metal for the blade. The scoop or scorp became refined as the years went by, and finally it became a finishing tool. Maple and ash burls, wart-like bumps on tree trunks, were first burned and then scorped out, making the toughest and most durable of all bowls. So again, that illustration. And on the next page, we'll see some of these tools that are used for scorping and scraping. It has the Indian adze at top, hide and flint, about 1600. The wedge of the Connecticut hand adze with an iron strap and a wedge on the handle. That's an interesting illustration there at top. Then down below, you have the Colt's Foot Cooper's adze, 1790 or thereabout. And then we have the an open scorper from 1820, which helps to carve out those bowls and other shapes. Down below that, a closed scorp, a rare scorp of the 1800s, which has a side view. It has sort of a weird kind of shape. Then iron scorps from 1850, straight and curved down at the bottom. So there we have those illustrations. And then we go to wedges and froes. A good woodsman would never consider using his axe as a hammer to hit the head of a wedge. That would not only widen the eye, but also would finally split the cheeks, finishing off the axe head forever. Yet, many paintings of Lincoln show him splitting rails with an axe. Rails were split with wedges, iron wedges or wooden gluts, which were driven into the wood with a heavy maul or beetle, as shown below. Let's show that down there below. Get the beetle and the burl maul. They're about 3.5 feet long. And then it shows the oak wedges or gluts and how the rails were split. So, to split shingles, laths, staves, and clapboards, a knife-type wedge called a froe or froe, there's F-R-O-E or F-R-O-W, which are shown on the opposite page, which I happen to have split out now because of the way the book's falling apart. That was struck with a short maul known as a froe club. In England, the froe is known also as a fromard or rending axe. The clapboard maker struck away from himself and twisted the froe handle to split the board with the grain while striking away with the froe club. And you can see the drawing of the man doing that down here at the bottom. The froe became obsolete about a century ago when it became customary to saw cut shingles and laths. Till then, riving shingles was a favorite rainy day woodshed job, and every household had several froes on hand to do that. And again, look at how the froes are built and how they're driven with the mallet up above, or the froe club. And so it goes. That brings us up to page 31 of A Museum of Early American Tools. This is the 4th installment I've made, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So John Marshall has also weighed in with something else contributed. I appreciate that. Paul Kay has joined as well. Silly Collette is here. Mistress Janes has joined. And John has said words that sound violent but are not English often uses strong-sounding words. Words that sound violent but are not. English often uses strong-sounding words that have nothing to do with the physical action. Musicians call guitars axes. A hatchet job means harsh criticism, and to bury the hatchet means to make peace. Being hammered usually refers to exhaustion or intoxication, not a tool. These words survive because of their rhythm and impact, not because of literal meaning. Over time, the objects disappear and the language remains, carrying tone and expression rather than violence. I don't think hammers have disappeared yet, but okay. And certainly hatchets haven't either. I'm owner of a very nice hatchet myself. I really carried that with me for quite a number of years. And it's just great to be able to share a little bit of something that meant a lot to my family during my growing up years, the Museum of Tools, learning tool marks, being able to understand exactly how things were made, really changed the world for quite a few people who have touched my life over the years. I could go into detail and often do. I think there's some earlier stuff that I've got out here on the web, which I might reshare, and we'll see how that evolves. Got some messages coming in on text, and on it goes. Thank you all for joining today, and for those of you who want to amplify my signal through the noise, feel free to do that. This is just one of the many offerings on Harrowings. I've branched out a little bit to do some of this sharing of, more arcane knowledge, perhaps, but there are a lot of people out there still keeping these hand trades alive And I think that's extremely important. Don't know if I mentioned it, but I am the administrator of Historic Trades Preservation Special Interest Group on Facebook. We've got over 2,000 members worldwide. I started it largely because I was getting tired of meeting up with my old friends from Historic Trades in Williamsburg at funerals. I was in that area between 1989 and 1994, or no, 1990, I guess. I was working in conservation for the last 3 years between 1990 and 1994 before leaving and going back to university to get my master's degree in German. But so it goes. And I've learned a lot over the years, and I would like to share my knowledge to the extent I'm able to. So another offering from Harrowings. Think about being a paid subscriber. That would help. I can do more if I get more support. And yeah, do what you can to be the change you want to see in the world. Every cent spent is a vote for the kind of world we are co-creating. I'm out here and wish you all a wonderful rest of the day.